With recording, 3, 2, 1, there we go. This is John, and we've got quite a few topics to cover today. I had a couple of questions submitted before the webinar via email, so we'll cover off those. We're also going to take a look at the revised reconfirm campaign function. We did some changes to the reconfirm campaign. I'll go over that just to bring them to your attention. It's not a huge deal. If you have your reconfirm campaign up and running already, it's not a big deal. I'm going to talk a little bit about embedding your Mail2 subscription center onto Facebook. We had one of our Mail2 clients, New York Philharmonic, do that recently, so we're going to show that off and throw that idea out there. Chris is going to cover a preview of some of the changes coming to the Mail2 custom screen that resides in Tessitura, so I know a lot of folks are excited to see that. And I'll do a quick recap on some recent Mail2 support ticket questions and resolutions that came in. And of course, if there are any questions that you want to discuss on the webinar right away, let's go into that part first. So to start out, does anybody have a question they would like us to address for them? Any type of user support questions? Nothing burning out there, so okay, we'll move on into our kind of our prepared piece, if you will. I am going to share my screen here, and I got my resolution bumped up a little higher. Let me know if you can see my screen. I'm in test client.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. I'm going to talk about our revised reconfirm campaign function. We're in the process of kind of upgrading this. And I just want to show you where we're at with it. For those of you that aren't aware of what the reconfirm campaign is, this is actually attached to the Mail2 custom screen. There's an activate button that resides in the Mail2 custom screen, which Chris will look at on the changed custom screen. That resides next to any globally unsubscribed email address on the constituent record. And say, for example, that person calls in and says, I think I accidentally globally unsubscribed my email address. Can you resubscribe that for me? So a box office person, phone room person can click on that reactivate button, and the reconfirm campaign is what actually gets deployed out of Mail2. And we'll just look at the one here in our test client. Basically, it just has a couple of required fields that obviously you want to fill those in at the top. We have changed up the the content editing portion of it, so it's more in line with a regular campaign, and you're able to add in your header and change up whatever verbiage that you want. And it comes with a standard footer. You can change out your footer if you need to. You can edit the HTML version of it. One of the biggest things with it is the ability to send a preview. To make sure that your reconfirm campaign is rendering properly, you can plug that in and plug in email addresses and have it send out to yourself or whoever you want to review it. The other thing that is also coming with this is a sent report. It's not fully in place yet, but when you do come in to send the preview, you can actually get a sent report, make sure that it went through, and you're able to see who all has clicked through on that, opened that campaign, received that campaign. So we are making some changes to that. If you don't have your reconfirm campaign set up, it might be a time to take a look under settings and reconfirm campaign and make sure that that is active, because that is what activates that reactivate button over on the custom screen. So that's that. Any questions on the reconfirm campaign?
Hey, John, I have a question.
Go ahead.
It's Eric from Dallas Theater Center.
Hey, Eric.
So when do we get that feature as far as resubscribing or reactivating their email?
It's actually been in there for quite a while. We just have sort of made it a little bit more user-friendly by especially having the ability to preview it. Previously, we didn't have a way to send an effective test with that very easily. You kind of had to activate it by going into Tessitura, globally unsubscribing an email address, resubscribing it to cause that campaign to fire out of mail2, and now with the send preview function in there, that's a lot easier. But the function itself has been in there for quite a while. I would bet, Eric, that yours is set and fine from your predecessor. May just want to take a look under settings, reconfirm campaign. If it's in good shape and you like the way it looks, you're good to go. No need to make a change.
And when does it send out? Whenever, I guess, myself would reactivate somebody's email, it sends them.
Anytime anybody using the mail2 custom screen clicks that reactivate button that shows up on the custom screen in Tessitura.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just for clarity, so there's two different ways that you can reactivate an address that's globally unsubscribed. One of them is directly within your mail2 dashboard. Log in there and you search for the email address in your dashboard. You pull up its contact record. You click edit. And it says, hey, this contact is globally unsubscribed, click this button to reactivate them. When you do that, nothing's deployed to the patron. That's a silent reactivation. It's something that you do as a dashboard user for Mail2. And so you can just do that directly in the dashboard. But then in Tessitura, on the custom screen, if there's an address that's globally unsubscribed, there's a reactivate button that shows up next to each of those addresses. And when you click that, it says, hey, this person's globally unsubscribed. If you confirm here, we're going to send a reactivation campaign to that patron so that they can opt themselves back in. Okay, so that's those are the two different processes. The reason why the custom screen is a little bit more of a process is because it's a security issue. You don't want just anybody to be able to jump in there and reactivate addresses and and that kind of thing. If it's a phone room person, you want them to be able to tell the patron on the phone with, I want to reactivate you, but it's going to send you an email that allows you to then click through and reset your preferences. So it's a little bit of a different process, and that's when this campaign is deployed, is when you use that custom screen reactivate button, and it actually takes you through a series of prompts to let you know that it's going to send an email. If you've never set up your reactivation campaign before you start doing that, then it's going to tell you that from the custom screen. It'll say, you haven't ever used reconfirmation campaigns before. Go into your dashboard under settings, reconfirm campaign, and set up this campaign so that this can be deployed to the patron. So.
Cool. Looks like we had a little bit of a question string going on in the chat window.
Oh, sorry. I have a question about. Oh, hi, John. It's Beatrice from the Arts Club. I have a question about the reconfirmation campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like I can edit the email on that page, but is it possible for me to create an email through the drafts tab and then just sort of save it here? Or no, I really need to edit this email on this web page?
Yes, you could actually create a campaign and then actually paste in the HTML here as well. The biggest thing with that is having the correct tokens that are in there. The reconfirm yes, the reconfirm no tokens in there. The unsubscribe link has to be in there for the MQS purposes, and then the company address token as well. As long as those things are present, yeah, you would be able to, you can basically build directly from HTML on another editing software, remove or whatever, and bring it in. We've got a number of clients that have done that.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, John.
Mm-hmm. Beatrice, looks like you also asked in the chat window if it's possible to put in a token for first name into a subject line. Absolutely yes, and it would just be something like that, depending on what this is probably what your first name token is. Oops. Something like that, and that will actually render the first name if there is one in there. Shanna Carrick had a follow-up question on that as well. What if you have a first name token, but you don't have a first name in the custom field for first name? Is there a way to deal with that? Answer on that is yes, and that's a great question. I get that question actually quite a bit. How to put in default values. Contacts, custom fields, and let me find my first name token here. I'm going to take this into edit mode. And you can actually assign a default value across the board for any field. In this case, maybe you want first name to render something like valued patron. If that field is blank, if that record in mail2 doesn't have a first name value in it, it will render valued patron. The other thing you can do if you click on the help text here is you can also assign a default custom value per campaign. Basically what you can do in the token is create the curly brace token, first name underscore, first underscore name, then put in a semicolon, put in default, and then equals valued customer. And this will actually override what you have kind of at the field level for the default value. It'll override it in that particular campaign. So if you wanted something different in there for a particular campaign, dear valued donor, for example, on a donation campaign, you can actually assign a default value at the campaign level that will override the overall one. Shanna, does that answer your question? Okay. All right. Recently we had a little project come through with New York Philharmonic. Chris worked with one of the web developers at New York Philharmonic to actually embed their mail2 subscription center onto their Facebook page. And this is actually done through web developer tools. There's a number of articles out on the web, and we're going to actually publish one specifically to do this out on our support site. We haven't had a chance to get that out there yet, but hopefully we'll get that out there very soon. But basically, when you go to New York Philharmonic's Facebook page, you can actually sign up for their email. And here is their mail2 subscription center that is dropped right into their Facebook page. Pretty straightforward process from a web development standpoint. Chris, you want to kind of comment on the process you took with New York Philharmonic on that?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you go ahead and make me the presenter here, and I'll show a little bit of what's behind it on this. It's actually really easy. I know like the sound of creating a Facebook application sounds kind of daunting to a lot of people, but in fact it's really very simple. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to do what New York Philharmonic did. There's actually a tutorial out on Facebook that takes you through exactly what you need to do and which of the very scary fields in creating a Facebook app you need to populate. And then it tells you how to actually add it to your page here once you're logged into Facebook. So it's actually a really, really simple process to do. In fact, we'll probably even maybe post a screener on how to do it, so you have like a little video screencast, because it's pretty simple. But once you've followed this this set of instructions, the biggest thing you have to do is just add the Facebook Developers app to your personal account, which again is a really easy thing to do. You can do it just directly through Facebook, and once you have it, you can click on Create a New App. You pop in some basic settings here, and we have that kind of in our support article, what to do. One of the ways you can do it is by putting the link that goes directly to your sign-up page in here for the page tab URL. And so that's what goes directly to your subscription center. But just to kind of flow into the next topic that I have for today, which is something for TNU users specifically, and how you can embed your subscription center within your TNU My Account area, so that you can have like an ePreferences tab when people are logged into TNU, and they can click on that tab and then submit their email address to return their subscription center in a personal way, because that was something that we got a request from Massey Hall for, and I think it has some general application in a lot of different ways. So one of the things you can do with this Facebook page tab is, let's say that you didn't want it to be the subscription center, but you wanted it to be this little form that says, please submit your email address here. Okay, so I could actually take, I'm going to try and do this real time, although I'm not exactly sure that it's going to work, so just bear with me for a second, because I didn't think about this until just now. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, and replace my subscription center here with just this link to mail2 to the TNews subscription center form on mail2, and this code at the end here after the key, all that is your company code that you can find in your mail2 dashboard. The way that you find that code in your mail2 dashboard is just by going to campaigns, posted campaigns, and it's just this code here at the end of your posted campaigns link. That's your company code. And if you want this URL, this will be out on our support site, but in the meantime you can just shoot in a support ticket. We can deliver it back to you. But in the page tab URL field, the secure page tab URL field, you can put these two links. Oh boy, it's going to give me some problems, isn't it? It says it might take several minutes to propagate here, but usually it happens pretty fast, so let's see if that's done. And it is. So now instead of loading up my subscription center, it loads up this form where it just says, please input your email address. You click Look Up Preferences, and there it pulls back a subscription center for Massey Hall. But it's my personalized subscription center, so it actually has all the preferences that I've already submitted loaded into the form. It's not the form where I put in my email address and then it says, oh, if you already have an account with this, we're going to send you a link when you submit it. We actually look up the address and then return back to you the appropriate URL, whether that's your already personalized subscription center with all those preferences or a new email address subscription center form, depending on the state of that email address in your database. So you can use this form that I just had there, or you can link directly to your subscription center in the app. Either one of those are good options for you to get your subscription center out on Facebook. And then for those of you that are TNews users, and I need to find out exactly from Derek at Massey Hall. Let's see. Derek, are you on today? For some reason I thought he was. He is not. I will get the exact field for TNews that he's customizing, but basically in the My Account area of TNews, you can have this, what you see here, show up on that tab in the My Account area so that the user can look up their email preferences per email address that they have. That is a new feature that you can add to TNews. So a couple of new ways to just get your mail2 information out there. All right, and I will pass it back over. Actually, John, do you want me to just go straight into the new custom screen stuff?
Sure, since you got it, go ahead.
Okay. So one of the other things that I wanted to show you today is the new mail2 custom screen. This is going to be ready in 30 to 60 days for full deployment. There's a couple things about it that you will not see when it deploys for U.S. clients. Actually, there's only one thing, and that's this whole data protection section at the top. This is specifically for our UK users because we don't have data protection as they do in the UK that we need the ability to update. So that top section is not going to appear for U.S. customers. What you would see is basically from here down. So when the custom screen first loads, all you're going to see is a drop-down of addresses for that account or the Enter New field. If you select an existing address and click Look Up Preferences, it's going to pull up their existing preferences exactly like this in a form. Right now, as you know, you have to go down to kind of the bottom of the screen. Let me just go show the existing one. So you kind of just get this big kind of set of options here when you first load the screen, and we felt like it was a much better approach to just show a list of email addresses, and then you could specifically look up preferences for each of those addresses as you needed to. You see the existing preferences that they have reflected in this form, so you can just look down. You can then just select what you want them to be opted into on this form, click Update, and it updates their preferences for all of those options. The in and out buttons over each section are the sort of check all for each of those columns. So if I were to click in, it would select everything, all the public lists as in or out. So you have this kind of one-click select all or select none options there. You can globally opt an address out here by clicking on that. It would globally unsubscribe the address that you selected here. And you can view the history for the account, for that email address by clicking on the History tab. And you'll see that it loads up underneath it here, so you can just scroll down and see that history instead of pulling it up in a modal window over the existing screen. So it's all more like in-page. We're not doing anything with modal windows here. It's all just kind of an in-page experience, which works better with Tessitura on the custom screens that they allow you to do with web-based custom screens. So Elizabeth's question, does everyone understand the in and out? No, we can label those differently if you want, like all in or all out, so that it's more explicit that that is an action button.
Or what about just yes, no?
I don't know that that's really any better than in out, is it? Just from a call to action perspective. I mean, I see what Elizabeth's saying in terms of, you want it to be a clear call to action so that people who may not be familiar with the screen know that if they click this button, it's going to select all the public lists as in, and all the public lists as out. And also,
what about just none?
What's that?
All and none. Select all. Select none.
Yeah.
I don't
that
know.
would be fine. Okay.
Or
Yep.
what about just opt in and opt out?
That would be fine too. We'll make an adjustment there. It sounds like there's definitely an adjustment that needs to be made, so I'll sort through those suggestions and come up with one that seems to make the most sense, and we'll take a look at it again before we make all this live together. So, Gloria, this is the new custom screen in Tessitura. So this is we're going to be launching this in like 30 to 60 days. So it would replace the existing custom screen that you have, but only if you elect to use it. If you like the old one better, you can keep using the old one without problems. So subscribe and unsubscribe are too long for what we have here, but then we'll make some adjustments. So we'll keep talking about it and see if we can come up with a good fit that satisfies everyone. So in the drop-down here, if you have an address that's globally unsubscribed and you try to look up preferences for it, it would just say, oh, sorry, this address is globally unsubscribed. Do you want to reactivate it, or do you want to view their history? You could then view the history for that address still. Just because they're globally unsubscribed doesn't mean you can't view the history. And then once you reactivate them, it would show the preferences list again to opt them into and out of lists. So. Cool. Any other thoughts?
I do. I just have one question on the global unsubscribe. Will it put them back into the preference that they were in previously? Because I recall now when I put somebody in, everything is set to no, and that might just be the way that we have it set up, but I'm not sure if it's the behavior or our behavior.
Victoria, I think that is something that's specific to the Met, and kind of how you guys have done it. Typically, what it'll do is it will remember the preferences that they had before globally unsubscribing and preload those into the form. That should be the typical behavior for that. So.
Yeah, that's
correct.
great.
Okay. John, back over to you.
Okay. All right. A couple questions that were submitted previously. One from Eric actually two from Eric at PAC. He asked prior to the webinar this week. He said, "Is it possible? Basically, is it possible to embed video into an email campaign?" It is possible to do it in a campaign. Really, the problem exists on the receiving end. There's not a lot of email clients that support truly embedded video at this time, and typically the workaround that we see is doing a screen cap of like your YouTube screen, and then linking out to your YouTube channel or wherever you're housing your video. but at this time, generally, embedded video is not an option. Chris, from your any experience or any thoughts on how fast that's changing, or if it's changing anymore along with HTML5?
I mean, from what I've read, the pace of the change is not that great. Right now it's pretty much iOS devices, which for some of you might actually be a significant amount of your readership in some cases. So, but iOS devices support it. There's a very specific way you have to go about doing it when you embed video in an email campaign. There are also some Android devices that support it as well. But it's mostly your handheld devices and the browsers that are on them that are doing it. Most of your web-based email editors do not. So Gmail, Hotmail, stuff like that. There's still some issues embedding in there. The main thing, and if you wanted to do it, I mean, there are definitely services out there that can give you the HTML5 embed links, or not even embed links, the HTML5 video script to use an email if you need to, if you're wanting to go that route. So I think maybe even YouTube today might give you the ability to copy that that code versus like a script embed code, which of course will not work in any email because emails do not support JavaScript at all. It's it's kind of up in the air. I mean, I think that it's I think that the benefit it's cool for us as marketers. Like when we look at that, we're like, wow, it plays right there in the email, but like, ultimately the benefit, I think, frankly, is pretty marginal. I don't know that I haven't seen any statistics that show that the work effort involved in doing that is really worth how much you have to go through to make that work, because there's a couple different video formats involved and stuff like that. So it's just most of the time when somebody's on a handheld device, like an iOS device, they click on one of those video play buttons and it opens up the YouTube app anyway on the phone and just plays it right there. So yeah, that's my 2 cents about it. So.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Eric. You're at Dallas Theater Center. I said AdPack. Eric, any additional questions, thoughts on the embedded video question?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things, I mean, do you guys recommend any kind of third-party services? I know there's one I ended up finding called Video Email by LiveClicker. And they'll create all the code that's required, and it'll put an HTML5 video as well as like an animated GIF for those clients that are not able to play back video like Gmail. It'll just be like an animated GIF, which I guess kind of gives you a little more movement, and then also the links if the client is not able to read the video. So that's the only thing I've come across. If anybody's interested in looking into that, videoemail.com.
Cool. That's great. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, other services, I haven't come across that many that do like the full thing, like where you can just upload the, upload the video and it hosts it and it gives you all the other sort of code that you need and that sort of thing. But that sounds like a great service. So.
Cool. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. The other question that Eric from the Dallas Theater Center submitted this week was, is there a way to drop in the little glyphs, the little symbols, characters, special characters into like a subject line, like maybe you're starting to see like little hearts or airplanes or something. I know with like Expedia, I'm seeing little airplanes and dollar signs in their subject lines. And the answer is yes. And actually, this website right here, emailstuff.org/glyph, this is basically a searchable library of glyphs that will give you the coding that you can put in. So maybe I want to put a heart in my my subject line. Where's the black heart? And I can search for that. And basically in the HTML string for your subject line, you can, in your subject line, you can just drop that HTML in there, and that will actually render that little heart in there. just make sure that you're testing it and looking at it in your campaigns. It's coming across the way that you want it to. But literally, there's hundreds of different glyphs and symbols out here here on this website and this database that you can search for. Things that I've read on it, it does seem to generate opens. There's a little bit kind of a neat personalizing touch, if you will, and it does seem to garner some attention when your message is in the inbox. So there it is.
Can I just, John, did you mention that they should use the inHTML line there?
No, I did not.
Okay, yeah, that's really important. So if you're using these special characters, you have to use the HTML entity representation of the character in the email, and that's what you see there with the ampersand pound 9829 semicolon. It's that whole string. So you would just put that in the HTML. You'd have to click over to the code of a editable content region and then just pop that in there, and then click out of the code, and you'll see your character represented there. It's really, really important because email supports UTF-8 encoding, and that's what you're going to get when you use that that inHTML character reference entity there. So that's just, make sure that you use that inHTML line if you're going to use the glyphs so that they render properly.
Hi, again, this is Eric. What about if I'm not sure if anyone's on using a Mac or doing their mail2 on the Mac, but I've also come across there's a character palette or character viewer on the Mac that has little characters, and I guess Unicode is the format they're in.
Yeah,
sure if
Mac.
Have any experience with that?
Yeah, Mac uses UTF-8, I believe, by default for pretty much everything. So with that, you should be able to see the same character entity references there, like the ampersand pound 9829 type of thing that you see here. So.
Okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. Like, is there a spam issue with glyphs or first name tokens? Not first name tokens at all. Like any kind of personalization that you put in, in emails, there's not going to be any kind of deliverability issue with it. But the glyphs, I mean, I haven't heard of anything specific at this point, but I'd be surprised if at some point down the road, as they become more popular, because we're starting to see more and more companies doing it. It may. Who knows? Who knows what the spam filters are going to add down the road? It may be that using glyphs is going to start throwing flags at some point, but I haven't seen exceptions at this point regarding glyphs. So.
Okay. Any other questions on the glyphs? Okay. Another question that I've gotten recently, and actually a couple of times in the past, is does mail2 have a button rendering tool within it? And no, it doesn't. However, I have found a pretty easy to use button rendering website called The Button Factory out on the web, and I've actually created a couple of buttons for folks with this. But it's really simple to use if you need to create like a buy tickets button or subscribe now button, that type of thing. Really straightforward. So thebuttonfactory.com has basically, you can configure a button to look any way you want it. So that's just a matter of typing in your text. You can change up the font. Maybe I want it to be like that, etc. It allows you to change the shape. You want a rounded box, whatever it might be, color gradients. It allows you to use a color picker or a hexadecimal code if you want to match something on a website or something else within your campaign. Borders, shadows, you name it. Finding it to be really handy. Basically, when you get the button design that you want, you can just download it. You can download it in a variety of different file formats, PNG, GIF, JPEG, etc. So there it is, the button factory, and then you can just simply upload that into your hosted content library like any other image, and then drop that into your campaign where you need it, and then put a link on it to wherever you need to direct it to. So the button factory is a nice, easy way to. Questions on that at all? Okay, one other recent support ticket that came in, just to point out a bug that we're looking into. I'm going to go to Campaigns View, and I'm going to pull up a draft campaign on the Send Schedule screen, the preview on the Send Schedule screen, which is great. We did locate something that does cause a little bit of confusion. I just want to point it out to folks to know that there's something that we're looking at here. If I go to the Sender Schedule screen, and I'm using my preview to test links, etc., we have found that if you do check your browser version, your view in browser version here, it will pop up. I think with my screen resolution, it's putting it somewhere else. Where'd it go? I got my screen resolution bumped way up. Actually, I can't even get to see it in browser version to pop up right now. If you pull up the view in browser version from the this preview, the links in your browser version are not working correctly at this time. Don't panic, is kind of the bottom line with that. As long as those links are testing correctly in your tests that you send out, your test campaigns, everything's working fine. Just be aware that we've got something in the view in browser version when it's accessed from this particular screen that is causing those links not to function correctly. It's typically showing a 404 web page does not exist, and we're working on correcting that. So that's one that has come up a couple of times over the last few weeks. Just wanted to make you aware of that. Any other questions from the audience today?
Hello, this is George from Houston.
Hi, George.
Northern Center. Have y'all covered? I came in like maybe 5 to 7 minutes late, so I'm not sure if we covered this. If you did, I'm sorry, and I can just look at it some other day. But has anybody discussed Google Analytics on these campaigns, on these emails, and putting it embedded into the emails?
On this call, no, George, we haven't.
George, what's your question specifically around that? Are you talking about just tracking like the campaigns, campaign source and media
Exactly.
UTM parameters?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of our users do link up their Google Analytics account to mail2. You can do it, John. You can show them there where you link that up. And the source and the media are set automatically to email and mail2, but then the campaign name you can customize for every campaign you deploy, so that comes through. And all of that information is tacked on automatically to the ends of the links in the campaign, so that then you can see the post-click analytics in your Google Analytics dashboard. Or we pull over some of the metrics, like the high-level metrics, into your campaign reporting. But John can show here how you hook that up.
Yep, George, under on your Mail2 dashboard, under Settings and Integrations, you'll see that there's 3 integrations here: Facebook, Twitter, and GA. And this particular test client is already hooked up to a GA account. In your case, when you come in, if you're not already hooked up to GA, what you'll do is you'll log into your Google Analytics account with the administrator ID for that GA account, and in another tab you'll open up Mail2 and navigate to this screen, and you'll click on the Google Analytics icon here, and it'll essentially run a wizard that will hook up your GA account to Mail2. Really pretty straightforward. There's a out on the support site, there is a how-to video on that as well. Just search Google Analytics in the search window here. Then, when you are building a campaign, go to the Details tab. If you want GA to track either your web traffic stats or your e-commerce stats, if you have e-commerce set up on your website, you just basically turn on Google Analytics tracking here. It basically takes your subject line and condenses it down, takes all the spaces out of it. GA doesn't like spaces in the titles for the campaigns that it tracks, so it will basically knock those out. And that gives you a way to see that campaign on the GA side, and then on a nightly batch basis, GA pushes data into mail2 onto your completed campaign reports, where you can actually see web traffic, e-commerce, etc. Does that help, George?
Yes, that helps. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Just scanning through our chat window here to see if there's any other questions that I have missed.
Hey, John. This is Eric from Dallas.
Hey, Eric. Got another one?
Back on that View and Browser button, I'm not sure if anybody's ever thought about this, but I mean, from my experience, and I've only been here a couple of months, I mean, I don't think a lot of people actually use that button. Is it possible? Can you remove that button, and does that cause any issues with spamming? Like, does it increase its spam probability, or no? You can always opt out of that View and Browser
by default.
Yes,
it certainly can be removed. It's not a requirement. Really, it's more of a fallback, or I call it my permanent plan B, for recipients that are maybe viewing your HTML-based emails on an outdated email client, where it's just completely rendering your HTML email unreadable. So it's more like a courtesy thing to people that have an older email client. It's certainly not a requirement. It can be taken out of standard templates. You can totally delete the whole area out. You don't, if you're doing custom templates, you don't have to include it in a custom template. So yeah, it could very well be eliminated. Sometimes we do see organizations that will take this and move it to a different part, maybe in the footer, etc. So it doesn't show up at the top of this.
Okay. Yeah, because the one advantage that I'm thinking of is, when you open up your email app, you see the preview of the actual message, and it always says the same thing. If you're having trouble viewing this message, I'm thinking, my argument is it'd be better to actually have some content of the email in that little preview pane. So
yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Did find a question here in the chat window from the gang at La Jolla Playhouse. When we have several tokens in the content field of a campaign, but only one token becomes activated based on the web content, what does that mean for spacing in the email message? If I'm understanding this correctly, I think what you're saying is if you kind of stack your tokens and only one renders, have line breaks between your tokens, and one doesn't render, you still end up with the space on the line where a token that didn't render anything is. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, this is Steve from the Playhouse. That is exactly what we're getting at.
Okay.
So if we have within the content field of a campaign, if we have 7 different tokens, for example, but only one gets triggered, you know, the message that the customer gets, will that space still exist? I mean, is there going to be this big gap between, you know, the two different text fields or whatever is contained in the campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. The HTML is actually going to still recognize the line breaks that are in there. You can control that to a certain extent by basically putting all those tokens on a single line and making sure that there are no line breaks between them. I have a good example of that. So if you run into that where you're getting kind of that weird spacing, I would try stacking everything on a single line. I guess the question is this: is it possible that, let's say you got 7 tokens in that line, is it possible that more than one would render at any one time?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That presents a little bit of a trick.
What you want to do in that case is just put, like sort of, you know what the hierarchy of those tokens in the email is going to be, and just make sure that the replacement content has the line break built into the content, because that's what makes it kind of conditional. So it's like if that content gets put in, then it needs to have a line break after it before whatever would come next. So you want to make sure that it has the line break built into the content that's being put into the email campaign. So you'd have just like the line break character in the testator web content, the less than BR / greater than, you know, that you just drop it at the end of that, and it puts in the line break there. Or wrap each of your pieces of content that would be populated in a paragraph tag. And that automatically, because that's a block level element in HTML, it's going to automatically pad it on the bottom and the top. So just build that into the content that's being injected, and then you don't have to worry about it. You just stack the tokens like John said. You pop them right next to each other on the same line with no spaces between them, no white space, and it should sort of do its own thing at that point.
Okay, got it. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Don't see any additional questions in the chat window here. Anybody else? Have a question? Question from Catherine: will this recorded session be available to access later? If so, when, where? Yeah, we will actually put it out on our YouTube channel. Catherine, what I'll do is I'll send out when I send out my next reminder email, I'll have kind of the backlink for it, and also I'll have to figure out if we want to link to this from the support site. Chris, let's talk about that and figure out how we want to handle that, best handle that. Mm-hmm. Any other questions from the group today? Okay, gang. I appreciate your time today. If anything comes up, obviously hit us up at mail2support.lynch2.com, and look forward to talking with you next month. I do believe our September one is on, I better not speculate. I think it's around the 19th or so. But everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.